The Metro District people don't know you.
I know, okay. Hey, was that okay? Hi, we're glad you're here. Is that better? No. My name is Dave, and I'm the Catawba Valley Thank You District Superintendent, and we're really glad that you're here. If you came for a riveting time of constitutional amendments and to grow in your knowledge, you're in the right place. Yes! If you came to watch the final round of the memorial, you're in the wrong place. Everybody good? All right, so without further ado, who are you, and pray for us? Sir.
My name is Dan Pizzette, and I'm the future district superintendent, David Christie. I'm the Metro District Superintendent, and glad to have us all gathered here together today. Let's open with a word of prayer. Holy God, as we gather in your name to do your work, and we pray your blessings upon this conversation and presentation. God, we pray in advance for our annual conference where we will gather and make some decisions for the way that we organize ourselves as a church, and we pray that you will grant us wisdom to move forward in ways that bring you honor and glory. Thank you for Kim and bringing her leadership to this meeting, and of course, thank you for David, for the Catawba Valley District, and for the Metro District as we gather together. In Jesus' name, amen. And now I have the pleasure to introduce you to Kim Ingram. Kim, of course, has several hats that she wears, one of them being the ultimate guru of most knowledge in the conference. I can't tell you how many times I call her and ask her about little detailed things that nobody else would know but Kim Ingram. And if she doesn't know, she knows exactly where to go to find them. And that's one of her major roles and hats she wears. It's just guru. So thank you, Kim, for all the support you've given me, for your role as Director of Ministerial Services and Conference Secretary. You have left a mark already in ministry in our conference and for the kingdom, and you continue to do so. We thank you, and it doesn't hurt that she's also a fellow Gator. Go Gators. And so I bring to you Kim Ingram.
Dan, thanks, David. So good afternoon. It is nice to be here together. I am the Western North Carolina Conference Secretary, and that's kind of part of the reason I'm doing this, because I have to prepare all of this for annual conference anyway, so I then have already done the work to share with you today. I also was part of the delegation at General Conference, and so it gives me a chance to share with you some of the work that we did, because that's how we've gotten here today, is through the work that we did at General Conference. I am curious, how many of you are from Metro? Yeah, I'm impressed you all came over to Gastonia today after having already had a busy morning. And how many of you then are from Catawba Valley? The rest. We also have people joining us online, and we appreciate that. There will be a chance for you all to ask questions through our online portal. There will be a chance for the people in the room to ask questions as we go along, and I will reference that a couple of times for our folks that are online. So when we met for General Conference last year in April and May here in Charlotte, so some of you may have had a chance to go over and volunteer or be a part of that. The work of the General Conference is to work through legislation that has come to them, or come to the General Conference from individuals, from groups like maybe a church council or an annual conference, and from our general church boards and agencies. All four of the petitions that we'll discuss today that are coming for the constitutional changes came from our general agencies and boards. So as we go along, I'll tell you which of those had originally submitted this legislation. They submitted it to the General Conference, and it was considered by a legislative committee first. And then it came to the floor of the General Conference, where the 800 or so people voted on it. And then it was approved. It had to be approved by 2/3 of the people at General Conference to get to the point where we are today. And so where we are today is that the annual conferences all across the world will consider these 4 amendments. And if they are approved with an aggregate vote by 2/3 of all the United Methodists who vote around the world, then they get changed in our Constitution. So it really is a multi-layered process that takes some time, of which you will be contributing to in some really significant ways. So I appreciate you've taken the time to come today and learn a little bit more about what you're going to be voting on. You will find the text, a couple of them, the text is short enough, we'll have it on the screen today and we'll read it together. But the regionalization, the text for that petition is really long. And so you will find the text for these petitions, or this, what we're considering, on the conference website already in 2 places. One is under, if you, and I'll say this several times, because if you can get to this one web page, you can get to everything I'm saying today. So it's www.ac2025.org. It's that simple, ac2025.org. You'll see a choice of constitutional amendments, and there you'll see the document that has all of the petitions listed, all the wording there. Also, the Program and Reports book just got posted on Friday, and they are in there, and they will be in the supplement. So a lot of places that you'll be able to get to the text of this. When you look, what you'll find is a marked up version. So the first part will show you what it used to say, and the pieces that are coming out will be struck through, and the pieces that are the words that are being added will be underlined. So you'll see a marked up version, and immediately following that, you'll see the version as it would read in the new Book of Discipline, or when it gets printed in the Book of Discipline. So just so that you kind of know what you're looking at when you see that. We will vote on them on Friday afternoon, and at the end of going through the amendments, I'll tell you a little bit more about what to expect at annual conference. So we'll go ahead. I should have said this. The first slide is just a starter slide. So we'll skip through that one and go to this. Okay, so they'll be up here. The second one, and this is a video that gives you a little bit of an idea of what the Constitution is and how it fits in the Book of Discipline.
Outlines the law, doctrine, administration, organizational work, and procedures of the denomination. Part 1 of the Book of Discipline contains our Constitution, which details our general foundation and organization. When there is a desire to make changes to the Constitution, petitions are made to General Conference, the top lawmaking body of the United Methodist Church. General Conference delegates vote on the petitions. A 2/3 majority vote is required for adoption of constitutional amendments. If General Conference adopts a constitutional amendment, voting members of annual conferences around the world vote on it as well. Across all of the annual conferences, if 2/3 of voting members are in favor of an amendment, the Council of Bishops will announce that it has become church law. Learn more about the structure of the United Methodist Church at umc.org.
So the next slide. So in summary, each of these 4 amendments was approved by a 2/3 majority. They each have to be voted on by every annual conference around the world, and then they'll be tallied for an aggregate vote. And if it's 2/3 or more, then it will be approved. Now, if you were to go to the 2024 Book of Discipline, what you would find in the pieces that we're voting on is the text from 2016. Because I've had to go back and forth, so I thought if you're ever having to figure this out, it's helpful to know. Until it gets passed, it can't go in the Book of Discipline. We won't print another Book of Discipline until 2028. So while this will go in an errata that says, if it's passed, it'll say this is the way it is, it won't actually go in print until 2028. So you kind of have to go back and forth between the different books to see. If you'll go to slide 4, please. So the first of the 4 amendments is, and the one I'll spend the most time kind of walking through because it's got the most text and the most number of changes in the Book of Discipline, is about regionalization. And it was originally proposed by the Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters. Now that's one of our general church committees, and it is primarily made up of persons that are from the central conferences. And the central conferences are the annual conferences outside of the United States. So we have jurisdictions in the United States, and we have central conferences outside the United States. The Standing Committee on Central Conferences is mostly made up of people from conferences outside the United States, but there are representatives from the United States, and Dr. In-Young Lee, one of our clergy, was a member of that, and she'll participate in the presentation at conference. But she's been really significant in the process of this coming to us. It perhaps is the most consequential, even not the most important, but the most consequential of the four amendments because it changes our polity in a fairly significant way. I'm going to show you another introductory video to regionalization.
The goal of regionalization is to be able to honor who we are as a worldwide denomination and to be able to honor the contextual, missional realities of each of those regions.
So we are moving toward a church that is truly global. And this is very important because there are so many good experiences, not only in Europe, in Africa, on the Philippines, and in the US. And if we bring together our gifts, that could really enrich our church and help us to be in mission with our people.
Regionalization is going to change the way we think about the church. We used to be a US church with satellites in different parts of the world. Now we'll become a truly global church where we relate to each other on a more equal level and where our focus will be on what we're doing together in mission, in serving the poor, in education, social justice. I believe we are moving into a new and bright future for the United Methodist Church.
We don't want anybody to be at the center except for our Lord Jesus Christ, and all of us will exist with total equity, sharing the gifts and the resources that we may offer to each other so that the spirituality called United Methodist will grow and flourish in different contexts and in different parts of the world.
And I have such this great sense of hope that we're going to be able to be that body of Christ that God yearns us to be, where we're able to be the hands and feet and heart for the whole world. And just so grateful for the way in which we're open to following the Spirit and holding tenderly the fear and anxiety that we might have, but trusting that where God is leading us will allow our fears to dissipate.
It's really the beginning of the entire process. There are many issues to deal with, but we need to start somewhere. And that's what I think the General Conference of 2024 has done, to start from somewhere so that maybe in the future we keep on reflecting on how we do our ministry in a better way.
Next slide. So if you see in this diagram, you can kind of see the nature and the geography of the United Methodist Church. The United States, of course, you can tell is in the middle, and then Africa, the Philippines, and parts of Europe are part of the United Methodist Church. Next slide. This one you can see more distinctly, although you really can't where you are out there, but you can see the different colors to see this is all the different either jurisdictions or central conferences and kind of how they're distributed. The primary change in this regionalization is that, well, in addition to a primary change is to replace the language of jurisdictions and central conferences to regions or regional conferences. So everywhere you see jurisdictions represented, there will still be jurisdictions for now. There's some thought they'll go away eventually, but the United States will become a regional conference, and then the central conferences will become regional conferences. And the next slide will help us break that down. So regionalization proposes the formation of 8 regional conferences. Each will have the authority to maximize the effectiveness of their mission and ministry by adapting portions of the Book of Discipline based on their context and culture. The next slide. What you will see here is that these are, it's got all of them here, great. So these would be the new regional conferences. The first 7 are the central conferences, and this slide originally had 3 parts to it, so it built on itself, but in the final piece of it, you can see Africa through the Philippines are all central conferences that become regional conferences, and the United States also becomes a regional conference, so that all of them will operate in kind of the same or similar way. Next slide. So what does regionalization do? Well, it would establish a regional book of discipline. It would set standards and qualifications for clergy and specialized lay ministers. You could publish within your region a hymnal and adapted rituals. You can adapt structures for missional contexts, and you can change chargeable offenses and their penalties. So these are some examples of how a region could adapt the Book of Discipline to contextualize the ministry and the structure and kind of the nature of what happens within that region. Currently, the central conferences have the ability to do that. There's one, I didn't think to bring my, I don't think my Book of Discipline, yes it is. If we need it, I can get my Book of Discipline. But there's one page in it that references a general Book of Discipline. And basically what that page, and then just a few after that, says is that the central conferences have the ability currently to adapt the rest of the Book of Discipline from that point forward according to their own contextual and cultural needs. But the United States does not currently have the ability to do that. When the General Conference meets, every decision made at General Conference affects the United States in a way that is binding. So what this does is puts all of the regions on kind of the same expectations, same ability, same ability to contextualize. The next slide, please. What it does not do, so what does not change with regionalization is that we will still have a general conference. So the general conference will still meet. We'll still have a judicial council, which is the group that does the work of being sure that we're following the Constitution. We'll still have a council of bishops, representative bishops from around the world, and we'll still have the general boards and agencies, and they will serve the entire denomination. We also will still have the one Constitution. We'll all share the same doctrinal standards, which include the Articles of Religion and the Confession of Faith. We'll still have the theological task, the Christian ministry, and the social principles. Regions cannot change those. Regional conferences cannot change those. Only the General Conference can make changes. So those are still worldwide in nature and will stay consistent among the whole United Methodist Church. And then to change the Constitution, it would still be to do what we're doing now. Some of the values, the next slide, of regionalization include equity between the regions. So it decentralizes the United States. Respect for contextual ministry settings, so gives some adaptability there. Gives agency, the power to make decisions and lead with integrity in each of the regions. Provides unity that is redefined and strengthened. Focuses on mission and ministry and allows the regions to really focus on mission and ministry. Embraces the stewardship of all gifts. And while doing that, maintains our Wesleyan theological doctrine and identity. So because those are in the piece of the Book of Discipline in our denomination that cannot be changed, then it maintains those consistently. Now, for more information about regionalization, there is a good bit of stuff on the internet that's been put out by the General Church that you can access at www.ac2025.org. If you go to Constitutional Amendments, we've put there different videos you can watch, different articles you can read, different resources, particularly around regionalization. There are 28 paragraphs that will be affected by this one part of our Constitution, and you'll vote yes or no cumulatively on these 28 paragraph changes. Many of them just change where we have jurisdictional and central conferences to regional conferences. But you'll want to look at that and be familiar with it before we get to Lake Junaluska. I have been to General Conference since 2004. I've been to 6 General Conferences as a delegate. I've served on 3 general agencies and one of our study commissions. So I've been involved in kind of at the denominational level for a good while, what has led in some places and ways to what we're looking at now. There's a lot of enthusiasm for it. There's a lot of momentum around moving toward this regionalization that is not quick in coming. It has been really fairly slow in coming because that's how we do things in the United Methodist Church, and really for good reasons, because it's given a lot of people a chance to consider it, to think about it, to perfect it. And then, of course, we're still going on to perfection, so there still will be areas and ways that we will improve it in the future. I'm going to stop here and take questions about the regionalization before we move on to the next amendment. If you are watching online, what I would encourage you to do, that same webpage, www.ac2025.org, on the Constitutional Amendments page, you will see where it says submit a Q&A. You can go on there, submit it, we'll get back to you, answer your questions. So we really encourage you to use that form so that we can answer your questions as well. But here in the room, what questions do we have about regionalization?
Oh, look out, buddy. Kev, just out of curiosity, why was Germany separated from Europe?
So let me look at that's historical. That's not a new thing. That's how they've been. And when I look at it, so Germany has a significant presence of United Methodists. Central and Southern Europe, I guess, I'm sure it's based on size, geography, kind of Episcopal area, and then you have Northern Europe and Eurasia. It's a great question that I've never heard answered, so I don't definitively know an answer, and somebody else may have an idea, but my guess is we have more churches there, and historically, that's how it got set up when they became United Methodist, and it's never been changed. So it's a good question. I'll have to look into it, and you know who that is, so you can help me. I'll try to get back to you on that. Let me see what I can find out. What other questions?
Pick it up. The live stream may not pick it up.
So how does this impact my local congregation in terms of our structure or our apportionments?
Well, that's also a good question that I've not given much thought to. It should not affect it. Apportionment. So you pay annual conference apportionments and district apportionments. It wouldn't affect those. You also pay general church apportionments, and most of that goes to our general agencies and boards, to MEF, to African University. It wouldn't affect any of that, at least as far as how the apportionments are distributed once they've been collected. I don't know if anybody else that was a general conference has a thought about this. I don't recall that being a significant part of the discussion, and I think that's mostly because it doesn't really affect apportionments. Do you have an idea of how it could, and then maybe we could think through that a little bit more? Yeah, and it wasn't part of the budget conversation, so that's why I think the apportionments it shouldn't. I'll look that up also, but make a significant difference. But then the other part of that question is, how will it affect your local church? And ultimately, the primary way I can think it would affect the local church is who is making the decisions for the pieces that will be the United States region will just be people from the United States. So I can't say specifically how that would change, but there are things that we would be able to do in the United States around our structure, around our ordination processes, if we wanted to or needed to, that would only be, only the people from the United States would be voting on it. So there might be a bit of a different opinion or influence on that, but I can't think specifically because the Book of Discipline is already, all of it affects the United States, and we've already gone through the inclusion piece, so that's not going to be different when the United States is a region. I'm not really sure that I can think there are that many really distinct ways, or ways that we already know that it will. It probably will, but not in ways that we already know. Any other questions about regionalization? Okay, then we'll go on to the next one, and we'll have time at the end. Did you see somebody else? No. We'll see if there is we can come back to regionalization at the end if you think of anything. So the next one is around paragraph 4, article 4, inclusiveness in the church. And this was proposed to the General Conference from the General Commission on the Status and Role of Women, and sometimes that's referenced as GCOSRO. Currently it reads, the United Methodist Church acknowledges all persons are of sacred worth and all persons shall be eligible to participate in the worship and programs, receive sacraments, and become members, regardless of race, color, national origin, status, or economic condition. What this amendment does is add gender and ability to the list of ways that somebody cannot be denied membership or participation. I'm going to show you a quick video from G. Cosrow.
Hi, I'm Stephanie York Arnold, and I'm the General Secretary for the General Commission on the Status and the Role of Women. This year at Annual Conference, you're going to be given the opportunity to vote on 4 constitutional amendments that are seeking ratification. Now, I hope you vote yes to all those amendments, but I want to make sure you understand one in particular, and that is ballot number 2, paragraph 4, article 4. We want you to vote yes to ballot number 2. For over 32 years, G. Cosrow has been seeking to add the word gender to the list of reasons why someone can't be denied membership in the United Methodist Church. So this year on ballot number 2, we've added the words gender and ability. So what does it mean if you vote yes? It means you're saying that women can know worldwide they are included in membership in the United Methodist Church, and it can't be denied simply because of their gender. It also means you're letting persons with disabilities know that they cannot be excluded because they live with a disability. Jesus regularly centered women and persons with disability in his ministry. And it's time our church makes clear that we affirm and believe all persons, regardless of their gender or their ability or disability, are included within our beloved church. So, vote yes to ballot number 2, paragraph 4, article 4, and let's make sure our church truly is open for all.
So this next slide has the language. I read to you kind of the main piece of it because I know it is hard for you to read from the distance that you are. But essentially the sentence that is being changed says all persons without regard to race, and then add gender, ability, and then color, national origin, status, or economic condition shall be eligible to attend worship, participate in programs, receive the sacraments, and upon baptism be admitted as baptized members, and then goes on from there. That's the change to this part of the Constitution. So we're going to stop here. Again, if you are online and have a question, please submit it, and we will get to you and answer that to you directly. Anybody in the room have a question? Or comment? You can. It doesn't just have to be a question.
Fully support this because I know the implications of this in Africa. But every time we add a descriptor, I think we limit ourselves. I'd really like to see us just say, if you're a child of God, you can be a member of the Methodist Church.
Thank you for that. Anything else, Laura?
I just saw this slide. Will it also change that second sentence or the sentence at the end, or just that one in the one place?
I'm just looking at the actual. It only changes it in one place.
It just lists
down here at the bottom. No, it does not change it down there.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay, let's go on to number 3. Number 3, we references racial justice, and it's paragraph 5, article 5 of the Constitution. The changes being proposed in this article are more direct and unequivocal in both denouncing racism and declaring that the United Methodist Church must live as an actively anti-racist institution. The general agency that proposed this to General Conference was the General Commission on Religion and Race. If you'll go to the next slide, I will read it to you because it's so small. The United Methodist Church proclaims that from God's goodness and love, God created all persons as God's unique and beloved children. Racism opposes God's law, goodness, and love, and diminishes the image of God in each person. Fueled by white privilege, white supremacy, and colonialism, the sin of racism has been a destructive scourge on global society and throughout the history of the United Methodist Church. It continues to destroy our communities, harm persons, obstruct unity, and undermine God's work in the world. Racism must be eradicated. Therefore, the United Methodist Church commits to confronting and eliminating all forms of racism, racial inequity, colonialism, white privilege, and white supremacy in every facet of its life and in society at large. So I'll stop here and see if we have any questions on this one or comments. Okay, the fourth one, we'll go to the next slide, is referenced as educational requirements for clergy members. That's not exactly what it is. What it is the educational requirements for local pastors to vote on delegates to General Conference. So it relates to education and local pastors, but it's not about the requirements. It's really about voting for General Conference delegates. And there are two parts to this. If you'll go on to the next slide, there are two changes that are being proposed, and one of those is really technical. In this, as long as this was being opened, they wanted to fix this. And so instead of MDiv, it writes out Masters of Divinity. So instead of taking the abbreviation, it writes out the full thing. But the more substantial piece is it clarifies that the Master of Divinity must be from a University Senate approved theological school in the U.S. or the equivalent in a conference outside the United States. The rest of the requirements haven't changed. They're consistent with what they have been. It's just making this language about local pastors with a Master's of Divinity being from a University, a Senate-approved school, which is the same language throughout the Book of Discipline. All ordained clergy have to have education from a University, Senate-approved United Methodist. Hold on. What are the language? University, Senate-approved theological school, and so it really is just a clarification. Any questions or comments about this? Sure.
Gary, sorry, just so the live stream folks can hear.
Why is the word Central Conference left in?
So it is because we have not gone to regional conferences, and because this is in the Constitution, when it says basically in the United States or the equivalent outside of the United States, it will still apply to everybody. In the Constitution, it will still apply. So there will be some consistent educational requirements of clergy around the world in the United Methodist Church. And really, it's not to become clergy, it's just who gets to vote on General Conference delegates in this particular paragraph. Any other questions, comments? Yeah, Melissa?
This is just because I've seen some conversation about this online. So if somebody starts a Master's of Divinity in that school, if they haven't earned a complete Master's of Divinity and have a partial, and that school does not get, for some reason, gets dropped as an approved, do those credits go away? Does that...
Okay,
does that hinder that, and does that make sense?
I think it does make sense. It's not particularly relevant to this, but I can answer your question. So if you're going to a seminary and you're working on an MDiv, and they are approved by the University Senate, and then they are no longer approved by the University Senate. So there is and I'm on the University Senate, which is why I know the answer to this question. There is, you can finish your MDiv from an approved school even if they get dropped within a certain period of time. So as long as you continue to pursue your MDiv, then it would still count. Now, if that's what happened, and then you finished it, and it was no longer approved, but you counted, but it counted for you, it would also count for this.
So it doesn't take that away. Okay. I had just seen some conversation about that online. That question raised. So
that's a trick question.
Yeah. But they just, no, I just thought I'd ask somebody I trust with the answer as.
Oh, I appreciate that. And it would get worked out at the annual conference level, really.
Okay.
But
I was just curious about that.
Good question. Interesting question. Anything else? Okay, then let's look in the summary. So I'm going to say this again, and you'll hear it again at annual conference. So each of these was approved by the general conference with a 2/3 majority. And if you look at the printed copy, it actually tells you what the vote was at general conference. So you'll know how many people said yes and how many people said no. Each of them must be voted on by every annual conference around the world. They'll all get submitted, tallied, and then the Council of Bishops ultimately is the group that says yes or no, they were approved or not. They meet in November. Nobody's committed to November being when we'll know, but that's what I anticipate is when they meet in November, they'll certify the votes, and then we'll know soon thereafter. We are not allowed to announce the votes from Western North Carolina. All we do is count them and send them in. And the reason for that is that people could track the annual conference votes if they got reported out as the annual conferences were happening, and it really could affect the kind of outcome of the whole thing. So because it's an aggregate vote, we're not able to know that. So we're done with the PowerPoint, but I do want to tell you a few other things. And the first is what to expect at annual conference around the constitutional amendment vote. So we'll meet on Friday afternoon for business. We'll start with opening worship on Friday morning, have a lunch break, do business, and we'll do some of our regular opening session business. And then we'll do the constitutional amendments. And when it comes time to do that, we will distribute ballots that we're going to use paper ballots. It essentially has the title of the first one, yes, no, the title of the second one, yes, no. It's very simple. And a pencil or a pen, if you'll bring a pencil or a pen, that'd be great, but we'll have some if you don't. And I think we'll do it where we ask all the lay members to stand, because all the laity that are representing the local church or the district, or if you're a deaconess, a home missioner, a diaconal minister, those are the lay members of conference, a CLM. And so we'll distribute your ballots, you'll sit down, then the clergy who are eligible to vote will stand. And those are only clergy in full connection. So whether you're ordained, whether you're active or retired, only the clergy in full connection or the ordained clergy are able to vote if you're a member of our conference. So we'll have them stand and distribute the ballots. And then we'll go through them one at a time. So we'll have to do the first one, open it up, have discussion. There will be a chance for people to speak for it, against it, and then we'll mark our ballots for the first one. And then we'll do the same thing for the second one, and you'll mark your ballots for the second one, the third one, and the fourth one, and then we'll collect them. Now, all clergy members that are members of the annual conference have a voice. So even if if you're a local pastor, provisional member, and don't get to vote, you still have a voice, so you can still speak from the mic for or against. And then we'll count them up, we'll send in our tally. They cannot be amended. So as you can imagine, when you think through how this would work, is that if a different annual conference began to amend something, we would never have an outcome that's unified. So we can talk about them, but then it's just vote up or down on them. As I mentioned, there's a lot more information. What's the website? ac2025.org. And there are other delegates to General Conference who can probably answer some of your questions. I do want to say, Alan, your question was so good. We will be sure to address that in the presentation at Annual Conference when we start, because we'll do a short presentation before we take the ballot. And we'll have a good answer for you when we do that, because I think it's a really good question. So I'm going to stop on constitutional amendments and just tell you a couple of things about Annual Conference if we're good on the constitutional amendments. Any other questions, comments? Yeah.
I've been debating about asking this question.
Give it a try.
Back to number 2. Who's going to define the word gender? Because we are in a national debate on that, and that can open a whole can of worms in a local congregation.
It's a good question, and in fact it came up, the annual conference secretaries met with the general conference secretary a few weeks ago to be sure we were all kind of on the same page, and that was a question that was asked of her, like when people ask this question, what is the answer? And essentially her answer was, we do not define gender in the Book of Discipline. It was submitted by G. Cosrow. Their intent was to include women, but it's not defined in a particular way. So see, I didn't know the institutional answer to your question. And somebody else may have a comment or a thought around that you want to share. Thanks for the question. Anything else about constitutional amendments? Okay, I'll give you just a little bit of information about annual conference. Hopefully you received an email from me on Friday morning. If you did not, raise your hand. Okay, good. So that's going to tell you most of the things I'm going to tell you now, but you know, there is benefit to repetition. So tomorrow night, John Crane, your own Catawba Valley, yes, member, and our conference lay leader and I will do a first-timers orientation. So if this is the first time that you have come to annual conference, we really encourage you to join us online tomorrow night for that. It will also be recorded, so if you don't get to watch it tomorrow night, you can watch it later. But it gives you kind of some of the nuts and bolts, in addition to what I'm going to say now, that will help you be prepared. Some of the special things, last year we started with annual conference workshops that were on Thursday afternoon from 1 to 3. And if you're going to be at the lake, we really encourage you to participate in one of these workshops. They cover a gamut of different subjects from kind of experts and people in the field. But we do ask you to register for them because in each room space is limited. So at ac2025.org, you click on the thing that says workshops, you'll see a description and a place to sign up for them. We will have a Juneteenth celebration. Thursday is Juneteenth, and so we will have a worship service on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. So there again, if you're at the lake already on Thursday, please join us for the Juneteenth service. It will be in Stewart Auditorium, which is where all the other meetings that we have as a full body will be. And then I think the Smoky Mountain District and First United Methodist Church of Waynesville and maybe some community partners are hosting a Juneteenth celebration on Saturday that is more of a festival kind of atmosphere. It's also at the lake. It's down at the end, if you've been there before, where that Nancy Weldon gym is, down kind of there's a grassy area on the end of Lake Junaluska that's toward Maggie Valley. Anyway, it'll be there at lunchtime on Saturday, so you could go down there and get some lunch and enjoy those Juneteenth celebration. We are doing something new this year, and I really want to encourage you to put it on your agenda and plan to be a part of it. It is called Connective Conversations, and they will be held on Saturday morning from 8:30 until 10. So instead of all of us joining in Stewart Auditorium for business, you're going to have a chance to meet in smaller groups in different rooms in Terrace, which is the hotel across the street, Harrell Center, which is the building next door, and Lambeth, which is the inn just up the hill from there. And the purpose of them, we were talking in our preparation that the way Stewart Auditorium is, you don't really get to sit and talk with one another around some substantial information about what's going on in your church, about the future of your church, about ideas for your church. I'll give you a couple other ideas in a minute. So we decided we would do these groups that will have in the beginning about 10 minutes where somebody sets up the framework for the conversation. And then the rest of the time you'll be in smaller groups within the room that you're in, and there will be facilitated conversation. So for example, 4 of the conversations are around kind of the nature of the church right now. So one's around being an advocate church, one's around being kind of a peacekeeping church. I can't remember the descriptions of all of them. But if you're interested in what that looks like, or if your church is already kind of fits the definition, that might be one of the workshops you want to go to. There's one on the rural church, there's one on the small church, whether it's small urban, small middle, and I can't remember what the categories are, urban, suburban, anyway, small church. There's one on using your alternative income sources for your church. Anyway, there are 12 of them, I think. And then in addition to that, there are 4 circles conversations, and those will be where the people in the room go through a facilitated process. It'll be about 24 people. You're in concentric circles, and you're learning how to live in disagreement with one another, and a kind of conversations where you can listen to each other. There will be a topic that the conversation will be focused on. I've participated in them a couple times. They're really interesting learning experiences, but you're learning a skill and a tool to use kind of later on. So you'll find the descriptions. You don't have to sign up for those in advance. Those will be show up, and if your room is full, there will be another one close by. And then Bishop Carter will be leading one of those in Stewart Auditorium around the Bible. So some variety of things you can choose for Saturday morning. If you're a clergy member of conference and you're in the room, well, anybody gets to, but that's who this next announcement is for. For the ordering of ministry service on Saturday night, all clergy are invited to robe and process. It's the first time we've done this, so it's also something new we're doing this year. But as a sign of the covenant that our licensed, commissioned, and ordained people will be coming into, all clergy are invited to robe, and ordained ministers can wear red stoles and process in for the ordering of ministry service. We're going to meet at 6:45 outside the Stewart Auditorium, kind of toward the chapel. There's an offering, as there is every year. This year it'll go toward youth and children participation in our conference camps, as well as first-time participation of youth and children in our conference camps. And it will also go toward Harambe, which is a summer leadership development camp for African American United Methodists that happen each summer, and it will help provide some of the expenses for that. So we'll take up an offering at the opening service and the closing service, and we really encourage you, if your church can take some money from your mission fund or take up an extra offering to bring with you, we really encourage that. If you need childcare, there's a Neighbor Way camp for children up to 5th grade. You can learn more about that online. And finally, if you cannot come, and your clergy, you need to request an excused absence, and there's a form online for that. If you're laity, if you're a local church lay member, then you need to tell your pastor. And if you're a district lay member, then you need to call your district office. So clearly, if you're here today, you think you're going to be able to be there. But if something changes closer to time, that's what you should do. And then the program and reports book is currently posted, so you can look at that. All the reports are there. The supplement will be posted either the end of this week, but certainly by next week. That's the actual business that you need at annual conference. So we encourage you to either download that on a device or print it if that's more helpful for you to have that with you. And then the worship book will be distributed as a paper copy when you arrive and register. I think those are the big rocks. There's a lot more you need to know. And you're going to go to www.ac2025.org to get that information. And then you will be prepared and ready to come to annual conference. So we look forward to this time of conferencing together. Worship will be led by a great worship team and great preachers. It's really a highlight of annual conference if you've never been before. The business, we try to make it where it's useful for you to take and take back to your congregation, except the things you have to vote on, like the budget, that are, well, you'll take that back to your congregation too, but maybe not quite as exciting as some of the rest of it. But there are some must-dos that we just must do, so we will. Any questions about annual conference? Well, that's all I got. Thank you for letting me come. Thank you especially for giving us your time.
Thanks, Kim. Dan was asking, is there a website that he can check?
It's ac2025.org.
Okay, thank you. Told you. Hey, it's Justin Lau's birthday today, the pastor of his church. It's your 42nd birthday. Wish you be more healthy. Well, happy birthday to Justin. Yay! All right, this is more fun than you thought you would have at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, so keep it going, baby. See ya, I guess, right?